Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the ultimate return of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is a show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. I've decided to cancel the rest of spin-offs and sidesteps for now. Not saying I won't ever return to it, I probably will. I just decided to put it on, cancel it, because I just couldn't get into it. And I really wanted to get back to the marathon and full cast stuff, and mainly just the fact that was only supposed to get us to January, when Season 8 of the 4th Doctor Adventures comes out. And it's January, and that's going to be out. The first half of that's going to be out soon. And by the time we get to it, it should already be March, well past the release date. So yeah, today on the 9th of January 2018, we're starting a look at essentially our first real long stretch of 4th Doctor audio dramas. Now, the 4th Doctor Adventures are arranged that started in 2012. We're starting with Season 1 in 2012 here, because this first bunch will pretty much be Season 1 and Season 3, with the Philip Hinchcliffe Presents stuff in between. That's sort of how the continuity goes, before we actually return to pretty much start Season 15. And then in between some stories of Season 15, we will get Seasons 4 and 7. And then after Season 15, we will have Season 8, then Season 16, then Season 2, then Season 17, then Seasons 5 and 6, and then Season 18 ending up the Tom Baker era. There's also a couple of other audios. The novel adaptations are scattered in Season 17, and then the comic adaptations will be after Season 8 of the 4th Doctor Adventures. But today, we are starting the first 4th Doctor Adventure with Destination Nerva, Part 1. Now, this story is written by Nicholas Briggs, and it takes place immediately after The Talons of Wang Chiang. You have the Doctor and Leela saying goodbye to Jacob Lightfoot as the story opens. And as this episode goes, it's a serviceable episode, honestly. It's good. It's not very special. A lot of it, there's a nice campy villain sort of player who is, this sort of almost acting kind of like a Victorian gentleman, being like, "Shake my hand, good sir," and that sort of spreads this virus. But here's the thing. We return to Nerva Beacon for no other reason except Nick Briggs likes Nerva Beacon, I think. There's not a real explanation as to why we need to return to Nerva. Like, we've already had Ark in Space and Revenge of the Cybermen. We don't really need a third Nerva story to round out the trilogy. And it's kind of dumb. Like, this first part actually feels like it's a rushed part 1 and 2, which I honestly think is a big problem for the story. Like, we have this bit in Victorian Kent where there's a spaceship crashing, and the Doctor's trying to track it to Nerva. That's what leads us to Nerva. That feels like it should be the end of part 1, and then this slow invasion should be the beginning of all of part 2. This rushing doesn't really help the pace of this episode. It makes things feel like we're jazzed. Like, we need to be places, and we're not actually taking a minute to really give ourselves some characters. It's like, no, we need to go here. Now we need to do this. Let's go. Come on, keep moving. Go. Fast. Which just, that isn't very well executed. You really should slow down, take a minute to breathe, and let us do stuff get stuff, going. That being said, Tom Baker's great. He gets some quips in. It's a nice sort of in-between Season 14 and 15 as a character. That's really good and really well done. It's just, here's a lot of the issues that it's a bit wobbly here and there. Like, you have a very wobbly performance from Tom Baker. He's obviously enjoying himself, but a lot of the script just feels rushed. Leela is good, but she doesn't get much to do in this first episode. And a lot of this episode is let's set up this plot that there's this doctor and this plague that's now infecting Nerva. And it's very obviously written by Nick Briggs, and it feels like Nick Briggs is having fun. He gets to play with the 4th Doctor. he directs the story. He's really good at the direction. But there's a big issue with a lot of Nick Brick's stories, and that is if they're not a passion project, and this isn't a passion project, this feels they have a tendency to feel rushed, and this one feels very rushed. It feels like he was like, wait, Tom's in? All right, here are the dates we have. All right, I'm just going to get a story going. I want to do the first one. That's my right as producer. So he writes it and he directs it. I wouldn't be surprised if he composed the music for it, though I don't actually think he did. And that's not really supposed to be a slight against Nick Briggs. I just think the episode itself isn't very good. Like, it's like, it leads to a good cliffhanger, and it's a lot of fun, but it's an okay start, but it feels like it's rushing. It feels like we are rushing towards, just like, we've got to get this out. It feels like, come on, let's get the scripts going. Let's write a script. Let's get Tom Baker in the recording booth. Louise Jameson is there. Overall, it just feels rushed. It feels like it needed some time to breathe, maybe some time to get a second draft in. It feels quick. Especially, which is a shame after, the first stuff that Tom Baker did was the Fourth Doctor Lost Stories, and those are great. We already covered Foe from the Future. That one's a great episode. So, just with this, I'm going to have to give Destination Nerva Part 1 a 5 out of 10. Alright, it is the 10th of January 2019, and I finished watching Part 2 of Destination Nerva. There's no really easy way to put it, but this one's kind of bad. It's basically just, let's rehash the arc in space, without the Wurin. Have it be this fungally type creature. Let's just take a turn into Frontier in space afterwards and call it a day. Like, it feels rushed is one of the biggest problems. It was the first problem with Part 1, that's still the problem with Part 2. You have basically 50 minutes to tell this story, and include one cliffhanger in there, which isn't necessarily the best way of doing things. It doesn't really, work very well overall, because it's not a full arc of story, and you can't really have enough room for the story to breathe, and give us an actual plot here, from point A to point B to point C to D, and so on and so forth. You take the time, and it's like we start with point A, we jump to point B, and jump to point C and D really, really quickly, and we don't have enough time really to get to know our characters. Like, you have this main scientist character played by Raquel Cassidy, and Raquel Cassidy is a great actress. She plays the character very well. We're supposed to care about her because she lost her daughter or something after 7 days, and she left, and she went on Nerva to cope, to help coping, which isn't a bad character motivation at all. It's just it's just sort of like, all right, there's the character, here's your motivation, we're done, let's go, keep moving. We have to still figure out this plot, like why is a Victorian gentleman in space, which is kind of a silly, I don't want to say plot point, but yeah, it's a really silly plot point, because it's like, hey, it's a plot point where it's like, hey, we just sort of exist, and it's like we're not really working on making a good plot, a plot that people can enjoy. We're just like, all right, get the plot out, come on, keep going. We got to keep the story moving, or else we are just not going to get it done in the hour we have to run it. Which is a problem here, because Doctor Who works on stories that, take their time to breathe, take some time, to know, like, hey, this is what we're doing. And you know what? When you're just really doing the arc in space, but with Leela instead of Sarah Jane, and no Warren, and no, it doesn't feel very well. The arc in space, is a perfectly good story on its own. We don't need a rehash. with a bunch of different characters who we don't really know and don't necessarily care about, because it's like, well, we don't. They're just these random people, and we just don't. The audience just doesn't care about who these people are. What do they what or what their motivation is, and what they're working for towards. They have their own goals, and so if you're gonna do something like that, you need to be able to get the audience immediately invested in a snap. Get them to be like, okay, I like these characters. These are fun characters. I like them. I can see myself in them. It's not a very well executed story, and it's something that if Nick Briggs, I think, had more time to deal with and to work out, he probably would have written a much better story. Let's be brutally honest here. It could have been a lot better if Briggs took the time to breathe and just took his time, realized, hey, I've got to write this. It's going to take some time. Let's work things out. Because, again, 4-part stories can work in a 45-minute format if you know what to cut, and if you know where to make cuts, and if you know how to write them. And Briggs just doesn't really do that very well. I think this is one of the first, he doesn't do that, at least with 4, very well, because he wants to write a 70s Hinchcliffe story with half the time, which just doesn't work. Like, it's fine when he's, writing something for, say, the 8th Doctor Adventures with Lucy Miller, or, like, Dark Eyes, because those are just same 45-minute stories, but they are, done in such a way that you know what's going on. So, yeah, it's one of those stories where I can't really get behind it, because it's like, hey, it's not a very good beginning here. This is the beginning of a range. It should grab you, and honestly, if the second episode fails to grab you, the conclusion just doesn't grab you. It's one of those ones where it's like, oh, okay, it's a thing. That being said, there's still some good stuff. Tom Baker is still really good. He still does a really good job at doing his best in the story. And then Leela's really good. They have a really nice ending. It's like, yeah, it's almost like we're starting a new series of adventures where the Doctor's going to educate Leela, sort of, standing off of that. And that's not bad. It's well done, and I really do enjoy it. It's just the problem of being a story that doesn't really know how to complete itself. It's just, it could have been, well, probably could have been a lot better. So I'm going to give Destination Nerva Part 2 a 3 out of 10. That being said, we add up the scores for the 2 episodes to an average amount to give Destination Nerva a final score of 4 out of 10. Thank you everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I always want to get a conversation going. And I will see you next time in the next episode of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, when we take a look at Justin Richards' first installment in the 4th Doctor Adventures, The Renaissance Man.